The moneymakers. I'm going to tell how I started logging on my own. I'll probably tell today how I started logging, period, and why. It's one of them things. Uh, this is the back in the day the two moneymaker saws. Okay, I robbed the muffler off of this one, put on old Dave. I'm gonna build one of them freaking bluey pipes. I build them little racing pipes, some stubbies that work so darn good. Like I got on, I think one of bucket. It was on one was on the bucket stock saw, and the other one was on the last 266 that I sent to Bucket and Ogan. That pipe. I'm gonna build one for this, or for old Dave, and then put the factory buffer on this. 66 Magnum flat top. I bought it new. I can't tell you what year it was. I rebuilt this saw a few years ago. Now, when I found out that they were going to start deleting parts for some of these old flat tops, I was in a position because I was logging pretty hard. I went and bought two complete rotating assemblies, cylinders. I bought all kinds of parts, oilers. I bought all kinds of stuff for these, and I decided that bearing failed. The clutch bearing side failed on this. And I don't know how many millions of feet of timber I caught with it. We didn't know these saws were heavy back then. But when you start running 44s and 46s and 372s and the 368s, 272s, 268s, these were heavy. But we was cutting timber back then that's worth really talking about. So this one here I've had since a long time. It's all steel, all factory parts. It's got good compression. It hasn't got, I don't think I've got 20 hours on it. Kenzie from BioCountry Power Saw, Kenzie hooked me up with some nice top plastic and a really nice fuel tank, because where that this one's broke right here, where that the main line would grab it once in a while. If you had two saws in the back of the skidder behind the arch there, once in a while, if you didn't get one just right, that main line would make a loop and it'd do something like that. I got two saws. I got a 44, an original 44 that's got a million miles on it, and it's still running, and it's got the same thing on the handle. Okay, its twin in the Husqvarna is a 394 Husky. Yeah, this isn't a 395, it's 394. I'm starting to buy plastic as I find it, and in fact, one of you guys gave me the emblem for the 394 for this. I just haven't got it on because I'd like to find a new old stock tank, which they're out there in this little piece, and I do have a new clutch cover. This is a nice running saw. I haven't been into it yet, but after yesterday with Dad's saw, maybe I better get into it, huh? Yeah, I think so too. I've got a 2100 that I'm trying to resurrect, and I'm trying to put two of them together. One I want stock, and one I'm going to go ahead and tweak it a bit, because they react pretty good to that 2100's dead. But this old saw here, you better mean it when you're pulling these things. You really better. They're about the same weight. Who's going to argue over a pound? Yeah, I know the Husky's heavier. But I'm going to tell you what. Back then, you needed them saws. You did. When I got out of the military, I was in 18th Airborne Corps. I was a combat medic. You guys know that. Some of you new guys don't know anything about that. And I was in Rapid Deployment Force. I was stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, if that tells you anything. And I got out of the military. I drove track trailer just a little bit. But after everything I'd done in the military, there was nothing exciting enough. I lived on adrenaline in the military. I'll tell you that right now with what I did. I I was part of a lot of great things happening. And I ended up one time, I never went to bars much. If we, with a band, you're sober and you're playing music and you watch everybody perform, you just realize, oh, dang, I don't want to get like that. Other than they were having a lot of fun. Boy, it was wild playing in bands back then. Anyway, I got talking to a guy. He's a logger, and I knew him. And I said, geez, how about putting me on? I'll tell you who it was. If you seen that video, cutting and skidding hazard trees, that fella there with a skidder, it was him. He's the first guy I ever went to work for logging. He done me good, too. He really did. For a long time. And I farmer cut. Back then we used to tabletop. Well, he told me we couldn't tabletop. We had to cut them proper. So we learned and one thing and the other. And it was really interesting. And I was still in pretty good shape from being in the military. So that helped me a lot. And I was still young. That helped a lot too. I worked for him for a number of years. And then I got a better offer. And I moved on. There was no hard feelings ever between us. And after I moved on, I went 2-3 different places. I was running into the same classic thing. Works good, everything's good for a little while, and then all of a sudden you're not getting paid. Or they want to renegotiate with you to try to climb in your pocket. And I don't negotiate well. If you say it, you mean it. If you say you can do it, I expect you will. If you can't do it, tell me straight up the minute you know you can't. Let's fix the problem. Well, I'm going to tell you what happened. After quite a number of years of this, I says, I learned a little something from everybody I worked with. Everybody, I don't care if good or bad, everybody had something important that I needed to know. And I got working for one guy. He wouldn't pay me. He wouldn't. And he told me, he says, one time, he says, I got to get 2 loads of logs out before Christmas if you expect to get paid. I'd call in, and his sister, so a boy and girl there. Little fellers, little girl or boy. And, Christmas, they look forward to that. I mean, to tell you, the snow was just butt deep. In the worst terrain, the worst hazards that you ever could get into. I was where nobody had ever been before with a skidder, I'll promise you that. I even got where there was no roads, and it was wild. I'll take you up in there on the 4-wheeler and show you where this was. If I can get there. I might need a skidder. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Just terrible. Dangerous cutting. I got more than 2 loads out. 2 weeks before Christmas. Well, this guy is famous. Well, I ain't got a check yet. Bull crap. I know better than all that. And 2 days before Christmas, I says, hey, come on. Be real here. I did what you said. At least pay me, Well, he owed me like a month and a half wages. He says, Harvey, he says, this is Christmas. See, my family comes first. He said, I ain't going to be able to pay you till the first year. But you want to keep skidding logs, we'll get you caught right up. Well, every day, I had to pull the batteries out of my diesel pickup truck and put in the darn skidder. Because his wouldn't, if it was below 40 degrees, his batteries weren't good enough to start the darn thing. Well, I put the batteries back in my truck and just left that skidder. I went and seen him. Dad didn't deserve a phone call. I said, look, I'm done. That's it. Well, you can't quit me. Where are you going to go? I said, shit. I said, back then, there was logging everywhere. But I tell you what, it wasn't freaking 4 days, and my phone was ringing out the hook, and people come and see me. They wanted me on. They did. And I'd made my mind up. I was sick of logging because I was sick of the crap. Well, I had felt like I bumped my head. I just happened to stop and talk to this old farmer. And I talked to him. He's a friend of my mom's. They grew up together. And he said, well, gee, Harv, he says, if you got an old tractor or something, He said, I got 550 acres of maple to cut. He says, I don't, if you want to look at it. I said, well, yeah. So we took the rest of the day, started walking woods. You know, Elfark walk. Mm-hmm. It was pretty serious. Big maple, high grade. The problem was maple at the time was never, you remember in the 90s, early 90s there, maple wasn't very good. And then when it did hit hard maple, it took off. It was like overnight. It just took right off. So I got this timber on contract, and I said, I don't want to start this timber. I don't want to. Let me figure things out. I don't want to start it until after mud season, you know. And so I went and cut firewood and to pay bills and one thing and the other with. And yes, my kids did have a good Christmas. I made sure of that. I hustled, and I got probably 30 face cord of firewood and delivered it just before Christmas, and it was enough to get things by, and I kept around cutting firewood. My God, I was already in good shape, and that just made it better. Firewood's harder to do than logging. I'm going to tell you that right now. There's more work involved. If any of you guys that are firewooders, you think you wouldn't make it as logger, and you can firewood? No. That's harder than logging, honestly. So, it come right along, and I had this guy, Forrester's, happened to talk to him that I used to work with, and he says, goodness, Harvey, he says, boy, you know where there's any maple? I says, why? He says, because, boy, the price is starting to come up on it. And he said, I think we better lock a bunch of maple down. He said, I'm looking, he said, I'll give you 10% of the job if you'll find maple. Well, wait a minute. How big do you think it's going? He says, it's going to go big. He says, that's what the indicators are. I didn't have a skidder. Got into mud season, got warm enough, nobody wanted firewood. What am I going to do? I got a contract for 550 acres of maple. So, I got thinking, I knew this guy, old Bob. He was a hardcore logger in his day. He come in this area, ruled the world. He brought in the equipment and he bought timber. Well, he's an old man by this time. And he still got skidders and dozers and sawmill and stuff. But he's on the end of his days. He's buying logs. That's what he's doing. And, well, I got introduced to him and we got talking. I was told to be careful, you know. So, it didn't matter to me. And I said, Bob, here's what I got. And he says, really? He said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do for you. He says, I've got a 240 timberjack. He said, it's ready to go. He says, needs a little work done to it. He says, if you come up, I had a guy put the motor in. If you'll come up and figure out, it's already got a blower on it, you know, a supercharger, they all do. He says, I got a turbo I'm going to put onto it. And he says, injectors, you need to know how to run the rack. I said, yes, I do. He said, you'll come up. It'll take you a couple of days to finish what I need. He says, I'll let you have that skidder for the first 2 weeks for free. After that, it's $500 a week. So that's $2,000 a month. I says, oh, man. I says, back then, that was a lot of money. And I stopped and I thought about it. And he says, and you're going to sell me every log you pull. That's part of the deal. He said, I'll treat you right. He's contrary to what you think. I'll treat you right. Well, by that time, I had about $22 in my pocket, and I only had 2 chain chokers to my name. I had the saws, I had the equipment, I had all that, all the gear. And I says, okay. Well, Barb's brother decided he got laid off, and he's getting panicky and run out of unemployment and all that. You know how it goes. He said, well, I'd like to try working with you. I said, yeah. I said, you ever run a skidder? He goes, no. I said, well, you ever run a farm tractor? Yeah, oh, yeah, I worked on farms. Okay, good enough for me. So we put her brother in that skidder. Did too. I worked that first week. We worked long hours. It didn't take him long to get figured out. And this ground laid good for somebody starting out with a skidder. And that was a hoss of a skidder back then, you know. That was a pretty good skidder. And I drank a lot of fuel. Well, I got hooked up with a fuel company, and they let me charge fuel. I don't know how they did, but they did. They was just down the way from us. In fact, they set a fuel tank I worked my butt off. Log ship Friday. It ain't like I was used to dealing with. You know what that man did? Well, Bob wrote me a check right there on the landing. I said, yeah, give me a check. I had to sign a 50-50 split, too. I said, you give a check to the landowner? I said, check to me. Yeah, I'll do that. He said, all right. Well, I seen that check. Well, that wasn't bad money. Pulling 2 logs at a time. Bob says, how many chokers you got? I says, 2. He says, you ain't making no money. He said, that tree ought to have 8, 9 trees on that, the size of these. He says, you should be pulling 1,000 foot per hitch because you're going downhill and it's easy going to gather them. He said, you should be pulling 1,000 feet per hitch. And he was right. And so went, cashed a check, got out of there at 2:30 off the landing, went, cashed check, we went over to Sisson Saw Shop, and we spent every darn bit of it, and I gave her brother a couple $100, and I bought chokers. And I seen that main line was only 60 feet long. You know how many times we back up and run out of main line and have to figure out how to get back in there? I put a new main line on a skidder. And I had 10 brand new chokers and them 2 old ones. So I had 12 chokers. We had a place to hang them and everything. The following week, things were different. Yes, sir. I pulled 62,000 feet in 1 week with that man that never run skidder before. And now to tell you a little something, her brother was a ex-Golden Gloves boxer, okay? And he wasn't nobody to fool with. He was stout. More than once I had to holler at him. One time I've seen him up on the bank and he's pulling on that main line. And it caught in the reel, you know how cable will do that. It was caught up. Well, he ain't done that. And he's going uphill and he's got 70 feet of main line out. And he had that, I could just about hear it sing. And I seen the skidder just a little movement. I said, Carl, whoa. He goes, what? What's wrong? What am I doing wrong? I said, don't pull any harder. And I said, I don't want you breaking that main line. I said, you're not going to pull that skidder backwards. Oh, we got to laughing. So I showed him. We hooked a choker to a tree. He jumped on the skidder, run it out, got that little whoops got the cable untangled off the spool. And good days, my friends. Good days. In a 3-month period, we were getting about 9,000 to 12,000 feet a day. We caught, the smallest we caught to was 17 inch. I won't even tell you the biggest. You will never believe me if I did. And I got on the export market, and it was double the money. And because we were producing so much, I got on that. And from that point, friends, I couldn't do anything wrong. Nothing. I was buying skidders. In fact, I went and kept that skidder lease for another 2 years. And if we had a day off or a rain day or something happened, it got where Bob, he wouldn't, because he'd take it around my log shack money for that skidder. It wasn't like me giving it to him. That was business. I did that with $22 in my pocket and a whole lot of ambition. If you got a dream and you think you have ambition enough and can do it, you better make it happen when you're young. I can still do it now, but I'm a little smarter about things. But I just turtle my way through my problems. Not bad, huh? But that's why I'm here today, all busted up and smiling, working on saws. I love you guys. You keep watching. I'll keep making. Goodbye.